All right, guys, welcome. Oh, you're good. All right, guys, welcome to episode 3 of Overtime on the Field podcast. I'm here with Steven, my co-host. Steven, what's up? How are you doing?
Oh baby, Alex, I'm doing well. Hope the same for you. I'm on a pretty good high right now. A good weekend of games overall, and rounding it out with a nice parlay hit. And always it's Wednesday. It's my favorite day of the week. Hump day. Got Survivor on tonight. Got NBA basketball back. But here today, we're here to talk about some more college football, recapping the games from last week, and giving you some insights for this upcoming weekend's games. Alex, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm excited too. I mean, I saw you hit that parlay. I was one leg away from hitting a parlay myself, so we're gonna have to go get it back this weekend. I got an 8-leg parlay for this weekend, so definitely looking for the revenge trade, and hopefully we'll get back on track for this week.
Yes, sir. Back to back, one leg beats for you, but I'm pretty sure you will be able to right the ship here for week 9, episode 3 for us. I'm excited to get into a little bit of a recap with you coming up right now.
Yeah, so just real quick before for first time listeners, every week we do these episodes of On the Field podcast. We basically go through each of the past week's games, preview the week's biggest matches coming up, and give you our thoughts and predictions. Just a disclosure, none of this is financial advice. Me and Steven are just big fans of the sport and big fans of overtime in general. If you guys are looking for a sports book, definitely try out overtime. There's a lot of big advantages over regular sports book, like restrictions. A lot of sports books aren't available in some regions. You can use overtime anywhere. We have guaranteed payouts. Overtime's not going to kick you out if you start winning too many games. So there's definitely lots of big advantages. So if you guys haven't tried it out, definitely I recommend you to go try it out. Put in some parlays, put in some picks. It's not just football; it has basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, all the major sports. Go try it out.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off you there, Alex. I'm somebody who, when sports betting became officially legal here in the States and in the specific states throughout the country, I was using, DraftKings and Caesars, and I'm a recent convert over to Overtime. And I will say, once you get your crypto wallet set up and you get yourself established on the platform, it's very simple to go through what games are available, what the odds are. There's many different types of odds systems. You have American odds, decimal odds, and overall, just a lot of unique perks, like you mentioned. One of the things is the parlay leaderboard. Unfortunately for me, I did hit my parlay. Couldn't even crack out the top 10. We had some insane hits from our users. First place coming in with plus 7,300 10-legger. So just cool to see this community built on overtime. You can check out other people's bets, and there's some incentives if you're able to crack the top 10 on that leaderboard. But also, to your points, no restrictions on location. And also, you don't have to give out like your social security or any like personal info to get started. So it's pretty nice. I will say I'm very glad I made the switch over, and I've been having some fun so far placing my wagers. Last night was fun with some NBA, and now we're going to get back into it with some NCAA football.
Yeah, for sure. For me as well, DraftKings isn't available where I live, so I'm forced to use overtime. But even if DraftKings was available, I would still use overtime. It's just a lot better experience, and I think we can go ahead and jump into this week's or last week's games. Let's start off with there was a lot of upsets or close calls. I'll say we had Oklahoma almost losing, Washington almost losing, Florida State had a little bit of scare there, but I think we can start off with the Oklahoma Sooners versus UCF. So former Auburn coach Gus Malzahn, he's a good coach, so he had his quarterback in this game, Plumlee, back for this game after missing 2 straight. He went 16 for 30, 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, and they were actually winning 23-17, I believe, heading into the fourth quarter. Definitely a close call, but Oklahoma in the end, they pull it out in a close call. Steven, did you have Oklahoma last week?
So I'm taking a look at this. I didn't track any picks for us here on the pod, but this is an intriguing matchup where Oklahoma's coming into this matchup at home, favored by 19, and just barely scrape out a win against UCF. I think if anything, my gut probably leaned on under last week. A lot of my games, I leaned on the under because of the trends in week 7. Um, but I was very surprised by UCF coming into hostile territory and almost having a chance to win late in that game. I do think Oklahoma will, polish up some of the errors they had in this one, and they'll look to bounce back to close out the rest of this season.
Yeah, I think they'll bounce back this week as well. I'm actually kind of glad that they had a close call, kind of like a wake up call for them. And now they're going to play against Kansas. I believe they're playing at Kansas, but I like this matchup for the Sooners this week. I'm leaning toward Oklahoma. Brent Venables is going to get them right for this game, and they're definitely going to go out to go prove that last week they just had a bad start, and that they can still make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, still undefeated on the season, so can't knock them too much. Everyone's gonna have an off day here or there. Important thing is they keep the loss column with a 0. But yeah, tough match. I think an intriguing matchup with Kansas. One of those schools those primarily thought of basketball schools that had great starts to the season. The line +10 for Kansas. I think it's doable to cover that. We can get more into that later when we look ahead for this weekend. Yeah, Oklahoma still 7-0 and has a solid shot at the college football playoff.
Yeah, I like this Oklahoma team. It's going to be interesting to see that Big 12 championship. Does Texas get in? Does Oklahoma State? I think they're 5-2 right now. Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma State wins out, they're in. But I want to see the Texas rematch.
Yeah, that would be a fun one for sure.
We also had Washington State. They almost lost. So the game finished 15-7 in favor of Washington. Michael Penix Jr. had a couple interceptions. They didn't play as good, but they really dug deep and finished out this game in a close one.
Yeah, an interestingly low-scoring affair here. I believe the line for this game was like near 60. Yeah, 59. Washington favored by 26.5. The defense holds strong. They only give up 7 points to Arizona State, but not the offensive performance we expect from the Huskies. But similar to Oklahoma, they're still undefeated. Still at the number 5 spot. They had that big win against the Ducks a couple weeks ago, and another matchup in Pac-12 where we're going to see hopefully a nice rematch between Oregon and Washington. Don't cover the spread, but they scrape out another W.
Yeah, how are you feeling about Washington? I'm not completely sold on this team. They had a couple close games. So they had a close game against Arizona. They won by 7 points. They had a close game they let California score 32 on them. In a close game, somewhat close game, and I think they should have lost the Oregon game. Dan Lanning kind of blew it with those two going for it on 4th down twice. I think they should have lost that game. So I don't know. Washington they have Stanford this week, USC after that, number 13 Utah, Oregon State, and they finish at Washington State. That Utah game could be very interesting because Utah has a very good defense. Cam Rising's out for the season, but Brian Barnes looked really good this week. I don't know about this Washington team.
I'm kind of on the more positive side with the Huskies. I look at the rest of their regular season. Stanford will be an easy week this week for them. 26.5 point spread, but I think easily get out the dub there. And then following a bye, or no, not a bye, but following week they have USC on the road. USC hasn't really looked that great recently, and I think they'll be able to take care of business there. And Utah as well. Utah the following week after that, Utah did just beat USC as an underdog, but I don't really have as much faith in Utah to be able to head into Washington and take down what would be then a 9-0 team. I think maybe they get one loss in the final 5 games here, but I could easily see Washington just running the table and then having a nice matchup against Oregon to decide who makes it into the college football playoff. I'm a bit higher on the Huskies. I think they got solid offense, and they will be making smart plays down the stretch of the season to ensure their spot at the top of the rankings.
Yeah, I agree with some of that. I think they take care of business against Stanford. They destroy, USC and their terrible defense. Utah's the only maybe Oregon State too, but Washington State should be pretty easy. But I think they do lose to Oregon in the rematch and the Pac-12 championship and the final Pac-12 championship. It's going to be interesting to see them over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we did touch on that potential rematch a little bit last week, both of us leaning towards the Ducks. Michael Penix Jr., with 2 interceptions against Arizona State, falls a little bit in the Heisman race. We got J.J. McCarthy taking over at the top spot right now, but still a wide open race for the Heisman. I think he'll right the ship down the stretch. He wants to be up there. Bo Nix as well. He'll be proving himself down the stretch. 2 of the best quarterbacks in college football. I like both of these teams to win out and then get a nice rematch at the end of the season.
What do you have in the rematch? Are you leaning towards Oregon again?
Yep. Oregon. Still leaning towards Oregon, just because of the chip on their shoulder and that tough one that they lost on the road back 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I'll take Oregon as well. But I think we can move on from that game. I think Florida State had a close call this weekend against
This was an
Duke.
one. Yeah. So just really quickly, Duke's leading at half, right, 20-17, and in the third quarter, their quarterback can't catch a break. Riley Leonard can't catch a break this season. He went down against Notre Dame, and then the third quarter goes down again, and then Florida State takes over from that point on. They have a huge 21-point fourth quarter to not only end up covering the 14-point spread, but also hitting that over. And this was a Duke team coming in on the road. I know you're high on Florida State, Alex, but they had a massive line to cover for 14 points. They were seemingly in control of the game throughout most of the first half and third quarter. And then to see them go down like that, it just hurts a tad. I did take Florida State and the over, but it's just a tough one to see. What were your takes from this game, though, Alex?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to say, if Riley Leonard hadn't gone down, they might have not won. But I think regardless of if he wouldn't have gotten injured, I think Florida State still would have pulled it out. They're a really gritty team. They somewhat remind me with their rushing game of the 2013 Florida State team that won the college football final. Yeah, I think Jordan Travis had, he went 27 out of 36 for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 1 interception. Not his best game, but somewhat decent, and he picked it up in the fourth quarter.
For sure. Also really well on the ground, 10 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown for him as well. It was a great showing from their offense. I would say the Duke defense had a great week last week, holding NC State to 3 points. But, Florida State's a different beast on the offensive side of the ball, managing to put up 38. And just a testament to Jordan Travis and the offense for the Seminoles.
Yeah, for sure. I actually had Florida State on my parlay.
Ooh, the lock money line. Well, maybe not a lock based on how that ended up, but the seemingly we both thought lock of Florida State money line. It ended up hitting for sure.
Yep, and then we also had Ole Miss at Auburn at Jordan Hare Stadium. Strange things happen at Jordan Hare Stadium. So I think Ole Miss was favored by, let's see, they were favored by a couple points. I'm not sure
Six
if
and a
they
half.
covered. Oh, 6.5. Okay.
They
Yeah,
just
they
covered.
covered. Yeah, so on paper it looks like you would think that Ole Miss would blow them out, but Auburn at home is a different team. I mean, they came within 7 of Georgia. Now 7 against Ole Miss. They got blown out at LSU, but they played at Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn's defense is really impressive, actually. If they had if they had a quarterback that could throw the ball, they would be a lot more dangerous team. But right now they're just relying on Jarquez Hunter, their running back sophomore. He's really good, making explosive plays, getting them out of tough spots, and keeping them in the game. Auburn this week has what are they playing this week?
Auburn is hosting Mississippi State.
Oh, Mississippi State. So 2 Mississippi teams back to back. They're playing at home, so that's the good thing. They play it a lot better at home, but their offense is very questionable. I don't know. I don't know if I feel comfortable taking them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mississippi State coming off of an interesting game themselves, beating Arkansas on the road 7-3 as an underdog.
That was my last leg. So close.
Yeah, we'll touch briefly on that one just so we don't rile up any hard feelings there. But Mississippi State coming off of a close game, Auburn as well, coming off of a loss at home, a 1-score game. I think, I'm leaning towards Auburn showing out, their defense stepping up and winning outright, as whether or not they can cover 6.5. I see that as the line right now. You got to give some credit to Mississippi State from last week, winning that one on the road.
Yeah, I think
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
If Will Rogers plays this game, I wouldn't be as confident taking Auburn if Will Rogers is back. Right now, he's still doubtful. We don't know, so we don't know if he's going to play. But if he doesn't play, I'll take Auburn. If he does play, then yeah, I won't be putting any money on that game. Too close to call for Will Rogers is pretty good.
Yeah, I'd feel a little bit more confident in taking the under to see at 43.5. I think Auburn at home, you want to control the pace of the game, utilize Hunter on the ground. Projected to be raining in Alabama, so I could see this game going under. Auburn's defense stepping up. Mississippi State only put up 7 last week, so it's a pretty safe call, I'd say, to lean on the under of 43.5. If I have to make a call on like the spread or the over/under, my take would be under for this one.
Okay, I'm gonna have to tell you on that one. Steven is pretty good at so for everyone that's listening, Steven is very good at guessing the over-unders. He just hit a 4-leg parlay of just I think there was a couple over-unders and a couple spreads. But
yeah, it was
three
of them.
Yeah, I like the under in this one as well.
You always like to, consider some external factors such as the weather, recent trends and matchups. But last week with Florida State and Duke and Michigan State, both of those overs. Left it a little bit late, had me sweating, I'm not gonna lie, but I did mention Michigan just really quick, we'll touch on this, but I did mention that I think they could put up 48 on their own, and they absolutely did, winning 49-0. And then Florida State Duke, just had to credit Florida State's offense, and I knew Duke would keep it close, but Florida State with a late touchdown as well, hitting the over there. As for the other two legs, Air Force Navy, which I called on the pod last week, under 36, unfortunately wasn't available on Overtime's market. So I called an audible at the 11th hour, took Ohio State Penn under 45.5. Just a lot to like in that matchup for an under, two great defenses, an early start. Both QBs might not have been feeling too confident just because it's a big rivalry matchup, two highly ranked teams. Leaned on the under for that one as well, and 20-14 was the final. But yeah, we'll see what I toss in for over unders for this week.
Yeah,
Alex,
I think
game do you want to? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm going to tell you on your picks for this week. I might just take a couple of years and add it to my parlay. Build a super parlay there. Take home some rewards. But I think
you haven't been bad in your own right. Your first week you went 10-1-1 on your picks. So sometimes you just got to trust your gut and things will shake out.
Yeah, for sure. We also had Alabama playing Tennessee. So Alabama played at home. They were down early in the game. They were down 21-7. So Jalen Milroe 14 for 21, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Before this game last week, I said if Tennessee gets the Joe Milton that played against Clemson in the Orange Bowl last year, it would be a tough game. He definitely played like that, Joe Milton, in the first half. Second half, not so much. That Alabama defense really picked it up. They shut them out in the second half. I mean, this Alabama defense is for real. Their rushing game, I was really impressed with their rushing game. They picked up 138 yards on the ground. But to me, the player that standing out is Jace McClellan. He had 27 carries for 115 yards. That guy's a big game changer right there for Alabama. Anytime he gets going, it just opens up the passing game and really opens up the Alabama offense.
Yeah, this was another shaky start for Alabama, and I spoke about this 2 weeks ago where we almost wrote off Alabama with an early loss on the season, but to their credit, 7-1, a tough schedule, and a big matchup, huge matchup in 2 weeks. They're off this week on a bye. They're taking on LSU pretty soon, and boy, is that going to be a fun one. And in a couple weeks, you might just be seeing Alabama in the SEC title game, playing for a spot in the college football playoff. For me, the defense obviously looked great in the second half, shutting out Tennessee there, completing the comeback, getting the cover. You got to give some credit to Jalen Milroe. He's shown consistent improvement throughout the first 8 weeks of the season. He's getting a lot more comfortable commanding this offense, and Alabama's trending up. I think they can go if they beat LSU. I think they can have a nice matchup with Georgia in the SEC title game, and they might even be favored in that one.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that LSU Alabama game. So it's going to be in Tuscaloosa. I'm thinking about driving up to Tuscaloosa to that game, to the tailgate. Probably going to give out a couple vouchers for the fans, get some more people over to the overtime sports book so they can play some bets. But LSU has a bye week this week too. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get that defense fixed in time. Jalen Milroe's deep ball, when he gets going, it's a beautiful deep ball. I mean, he can throw it 60, 70 yards easy. But you have Jaden Daniels, Heisman quarterback. I think he's third place right now for the Heisman. So he's one of the favorites. I don't know. That's going to be a tough game because LSU has they're definitely it's going to be the best offense that Alabama has played so far since week 2 when they played Texas. Quinn Ewers and Jaden Daniels have a lot of similarities. But something that I was surprised to see about this game, Alabama-Tennessee, was, especially in the first half, how Joe Milton was able to run the ball. He got a couple first downs. They had a little bit of trouble getting him on the ground. And Jaden Daniels likes to run the ball a lot. Let's see how many rushing yards Joe Milton had this week. He had 59 yards on the ground. So not too many, but it was enough to pick up first downs in like crucial situations in the first half. I like that game, Alabama versus LSU. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, a lot to cover next week on that one. We're obviously highlighting going to be the offense of LSU taking on the defense of Alabama. But then I also like to look at the coaching matchup. Nick Saban, Brian Kelly. My gut says to fade Brian Kelly. So We'll get into that more next week. What might be one of the games of the year, November 4th.
I'll just add this. You never want to fade Nick Saban to lose to the same coach 2 times consecutively. This guy's one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. Fade him at your own risk.
That's a good point, Alex. What game
we also had next? Let's go to the USC versus Utah game. I actually picked USC to win. I thought they would bounce back. I didn't think that Utah had the offense. I knew they had the defense, but I didn't think they had enough offense to stay with USC. I was proved wrong. Bryson Barnes actually played really good. He was able to run the ball. He went 14 completions out of 23, 235 yards, 3 touchdowns, just 1 interception, but he looked good. USC almost had the late comeback. Had a punt return to take the lead, and then USC just needed one stop, but their defense couldn't get it. The USC defense reminds me a lot of LSU, like when LSU played Ole Miss, and they just needed one stop to win the game, and they couldn't get it. That's actually a matchup that I would like to see in the bowl game. LSU versus USC, 2 big offenses with no defense. That would be a fun matchup.
Yeah, we might get like an over-under of 85 for that one if that happens.
Yeah.
This matchup for me, I took on the pod, I took Utah to cover the 7 just because, like I mentioned last week, maybe a little bias against USC, but also they just, Caleb Williams looked shaky against Notre Dame with a couple interceptions. But the main storyline for this Trojan team this season has been their defense and who they can't defend. They gave up like 41 to Colorado a couple weeks ago, almost lost to Arizona. And then after that, back-to-back losses. They had a chance to win this one against Utah, but never really looked like they were covering the spread. And, couldn't defend in the final moments of the game. Utah gets a late field goal walk-off to win this one, 34-32. And it's only going to get harder for USC down the stretch. They still have to play Washington. They still have to play Oregon. I think the floor for losses for them is at 4 now, and it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see if they can prove me wrong there and pick up a couple of big wins down the stretch. But their season's pretty much over at this point, in my opinion. They got a relatively easy matchup against California this week, favored by 11. But even that one, I'm kind of hesitant to say they'll win. I might take California plus the points because they can't defend. Anyway.
That defense is just terrible. I mean, we would have to see who. Yeah, I really hope LSU and the USC play in that bowl game so we can see who has a better defense. I would lean to LSU, but I don't know. I mean, their defense is pretty bad too. So I think, I think they lose. I think they'll win against California. I don't know if they probably won't cover. I mean, that defense is pretty bad. California put up 40 points on Oregon State. Only 14 against Utah, but Utah has a good defense. Um, they put 32 on Washington. They're only able to put up 10 against Auburn, but Auburn has a good defense as well, and Auburn played at home. Yeah, I wouldn't feel too confident taking USC in the points. I think I might have to take California plus the points as well. That's what I'm leaning to.
Yeah, if they can just string together a couple of nice possessions early, get the ball rolling, get their head right early against USC, I think they'll be able to put up 3 scores pretty easily. And 11 points at that point, 11-point spread cushion is very nice. I'm leaning towards that as well. California plus 11.
Yeah, and it looks like the over/under is set at 67. Do you think they'll hit that?
I don't want to make a call on that. It's a tad high, and I could see this going either way. I think it's more safe to say that Cal with the 11 points is a more safer position to take. 67 points. If Caleb Williams bounces back in the right way and doesn't turn the ball over, I think that USC can put up 40. So maybe they'll hit it, but I'd stay away from this over/under personally.
Yeah. Initially, I was going to go USC money line just because I don't think they'll drop 3 straight. And they played 2 really good defensive teams back to back. So it might be a good game for them to get back on the winning streak, but with that defense, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to risk it on a parlay. Yeah, I think everything else could hit on my parlay, and then I would be super mad when I see USC drops that game. Somehow they would find a way to lose it with that defense. So I'm going to stay away from that game completely. I just won't bet on that one. The only time I'll bet on USC is when they'll play Washington and Oregon, and I'll take both teams to beat USC. I mean, I think that's basically a lock for USC to lose both of those games. Yeah.
USC hanging on by a thread in the top 25. With a loss this week, they're pretty much out of it completely. I think this one might be a bit of a trappy game. I'd say California plus 11, and don't look at anything else.
Yeah. Is there any other game from this past week that you wanted to cover?
I mean, we got to talk about Ohio State, Penn State.
The big one.
The big matchup of the week. Number 3, Ohio State hosting number 7, Penn State. This one, I was wrong on the spread. I thought I thought the line of 4.5 initially, and then it ended up going to 5 later on in the week. But I thought the line of 4.5 at the time was a bit disrespectful to Penn State. They've been absolutely crushing teams, but we did mention this. They haven't been as battle-tested as Ohio State's been, who have looked shaky in some games to start off the season, but like we mentioned with Oklahoma and Washington, still undefeated. They're 7-0, and they proved they have what it takes in a defensive masterclass against Penn State at home. This one was close throughout the first half. I think one of the key points to that was Cade Stover, their tight end, missed some time in the first half with an injury. That gave Penn State the ability to double cover Marvin Harrison and limit Kyle McCord's options in the pass game. And in the run game, they don't really utilize their running backs that well. They have about 4 different running backs they shift through. And I think Brian Day needs to sort out who their lead back is on the ground. Kyle McCord, it's his junior year. He hasn't really shown much improvement, in my opinion. Still looks like a deer in headlights at certain times, a little bit shaky. And I still have that image in my mind after Ohio State beat ND late of him celebrating like a little kid when they got that late rushing touchdown. I don't think he's the man for the job, and I think down the stretch, that's going to be where this Ohio State team has their season come to an end, presumably against Michigan in the Big Ten title game. We'll see if they still make the college football playoff, but I think you got to give the edge to Michigan. We'll get to that later. And Penn State offense didn't look great at all, but you could, give most of the credit to the Ohio State defense. Just think they are lacking some elite talent to be able to score against some of the bigger teams, and only putting up 12 this week. It was a very nice match for the under, very solid throughout. When the first half came in at 10-6, so sitting pretty comfortably. And happy to have that one in my parlay and not Penn State plus the points. This was one of the better games for the week. I know it was a little bit low scoring, but two of the better teams going at it. What was your takes on this one, Alex?
Yeah, I had so I picked on the pod Penn State to win plus or to cover the spread at least of +4. I didn't put it in my parlay just because Penn State hasn't really played anybody. I wasn't completely sold on this Ohio State team, but now, yeah, I'm a believer now. Actually, Kyle McCord he started 9 for 9. He started off hot, but Marvin Harrison Jr. had a couple. He had 11 receptions and 162 yards. But you know what's crazy about that is that he actually had a lot of drop passes, and he actually didn't look as good. And he still had to still be able to put up those numbers and not have a good day is very impressive. Marvin Harrison Jr. is definitely he's a good player, and he's what that Ohio State team needs. I don't know that Michigan Ohio State matchup now is a lot more interesting because, like we said last week, Penn State hadn't really played anybody. Michigan, by the time that they get to that game, they'll have played a couple of teams, but somewhat relatively easy schedule up until now. So they have Purdue coming up in 2 weeks. Then they have Penn State, which they should win, and Maryland, which they should also win, and then they have Ohio State at the end of the season. So that's definitely going to be a good game. I don't know. That's going to be tough to call, and I'll probably stay away from betting on that one. But so far, I'm leaning towards Ohio State. We'll see if that changes coming here near to the end of the season. But Ohio State's defense is the real deal. Kyle McCord or Drew Aller really struggled to get anything in the ground game or in the passing game. Ohio State's secondary looked really good. It kind of looked like two SEC teams going at it, and back in like 2012 or something, 2010. Reminds me of LSU versus Alabama a couple of years back, where I think LSU won 9-6. But just really refreshing to see two defensive teams, go at it in rivalry games.
Yeah, a lot of nice plays early on in the first half, especially on the defensive end of the ball for Ohio State, stopping a couple scores early. Just a fun one to watch because this kind of set the tone for the Buckeyes going down the stretch. Alex, you said you like Ohio State over Michigan at this point, and while I will agree they are more battle-tested than the Wolverines, you got to give credit to Michigan where credit is due. They're killing everybody they play. Last week they doubled the spread of 24, shutting out their rival Michigan State on the road. Previously, whooping Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, Rutgers, who have looked solid against other teams. Rutgers, Michigan is beating handily who they have in front of them. They got a bye this week, so they earned themselves a little bit of a rest. I think the Penn State game will be interesting to watch. I'm intrigued to see what the line will be for the Wolverines to cover. But Death Valley is not, or not Death Valley, but Penn State is not an easy place to play. Um, it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. And then when you get down to it at the end of the season, the big one, Ohio State versus Michigan, it's at the Big House. Both these teams very easily could be undefeated. I think you got to give the edge to the team at home and the team with the better quarterback and JJ McCarthy. I trust him more with the ball, and I think they'll have a couple of big moments, big drives late to seal the win. I expect it to be close throughout, but we can definitely dive more into that in about a month.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and a couple of things can change here in a couple of weeks too. We'll see how that goes. So moving on to this week's games, we have a couple of interesting matchups. The big one is Oregon versus Utah. We'll touch more on that one later, but we'll jump right into Oklahoma versus Kansas. So we talked a little bit about this one earlier. I think Kansas' quarterback is back. We'll have to check on that. But like we said earlier, I think Brent Venables is going to get his team right. They had a little scare last week, but I think this is a good bounce back spot for them to go out and prove that last week was just a slow start and they can still finish the season strong. I like Oklahoma on the money line.
I think Oklahoma money line is a very safe position to take. Here's where I'll counter you a bit. Kansas is at home. It's a huge game for their season. If they lose this, they fall to 5-3. But if they win this one, there's a nice case to put them back into the top 25. Kansas started off the season hot. Last 3 weeks, losing a tough one to Oklahoma State last week. Killed UCF, who just had a nice week in their own right. And then losing big to Texas. I think 10 points at home is a bit much. And for an Oklahoma team that looked shaky last week, I think you gotta rock chalk a bit on the spread. I'm gonna take Kansas plus 10.
Okay, I just checked. It looks like Jalen Daniels is not gonna play. It looks like Jason Bean is gonna be in. Do your thoughts change at all with that, or still the same?
I still think the same. He's not looked amazing as compared to Jalen Daniels, but still able to get the job done. I think this one comes down to more the atmosphere of the environment for Kansas. This is the biggest game of the season for them. Number 6, Oklahoma coming into town. I don't think they'll win outright, but I think they're going to be scrapping all 4 quarters. I think you got to give them the 10 points. That's what I would lean towards. In terms of the over-under of 65, I'd say that's an easy over, in my opinion. A lot of offense in this one.
Yeah, I like the over as well. Yeah, I won't touch the points. I think I'll just take Oklahoma minus 400 favorite on the money line. Hopefully they win. I think, yeah, it could definitely be a close game.
Even late, even if Kansas is out of it by 2 scores, they're at home. I could see a late touchdown as like a backdoor cover. Very plausible option. I think it's a tad safer to just roll with the plus 10. But my Oklahoma money line, definitely not a bad position.
Yeah, and we also have, let's see, Florida and Georgia. It looks like they're going to play at the Swamp. I don't know. You have Brock Bowers out for Georgia, and you're going to go play at the Swamp. We saw what happened to Tennessee when they went to go play at the Swamp. Tennessee looked terrible there. And their only other loss other than Alabama. I don't know. I think for me, the odds are a little bit they don't reflect how good Florida is. Florida looked very good against Tennessee, and some other games they didn't look as good. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this one because for Georgia to beat Auburn, they needed Brock Bowers. He basically won them that game in the 4th quarter, and now you don't have him, and you're playing Florida at the Swamp. This could be an interesting game. Let's see what the spread is at.
Spread's Georgia minus 14.5.
Yeah, 14.5. Yeah.
Over under 47.5.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the. I might have to lean in here, Florida, to cover that.
So I'm going to agree with you here. A couple of factors. Brock Bauer in out is huge for Georgia. He's their best player by far. Georgia has not been covering that many games as of late. Only won by 17 against Vanderbilt. And just like the last game we covered with Oklahoma, Kansas, Florida's at home. Biggest game of the year for them. I like them to keep this one within 2 scores. And line of 47. I think I'm going to stay away from calling the over-under. I could see this going either way, high scoring or not. My gut would lean under for this one, but I think the position I'd take for sure is Florida plus 14.5, even if they lose by 2 touchdowns, still covering that.
Yeah, I like that. I think for Florida to cover, Trevor Etienne is going to have a big game. We saw him have a big game against Tennessee. He went for 172 yards. And Graham Mertz is definitely capable of putting up a good game, especially at home. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. So the odds are at minus 600 for Georgia. Yeah, I like Florida to cover here. I think that's going to be one of the more interesting games. Might not be as easy as everybody thinks it will be, but definitely going to watch that game this weekend for sure. We also have Texas at BYU. We saw Quinn Ewers go down. We don't know when he's going to come back, but it looks like Malik is going to be in as a backup quarterback. BYU is 5-2. That's going to be an interesting game as well, but I think Texas can still pull it out.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. Texas money line, very safe call despite Ewers being out. And I'm also going to lean on Texas to cover the 17.5 point spread. I just don't think BYU is going to have what it takes to compete with the level of talent the Longhorns have on the road at a primetime 3:30 game. Yeah, Texas. Just give me Texas minus 17.5.
Nice. Yeah, I'll go with Texas money line too. Oh, another game we have Louisville versus Duke. This one's interesting because Riley Leonard got hurt. The odds definitely reflect that. Louisville's a favorite here. The spread's at -4. Over under set at 47. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from this game. If if Duke's quarterback wasn't hurt, I would take Louisville. But with him being hurt, I'm not as confident. So I'll stay away from this game.
So here's my take. I don't think Louisville's that good. And I know they beat Notre Dame. But they lost pretty badly to Pitt. And this Duke team has surprised throughout the season so far. They lost a tough one at home to Notre Dame. And then a brutal one this past weekend at Florida State. They're given 4 points. They're on the road in Louisville. I think it's very doable. Not to rhyming accidentally there. I think it's very doable for the Duke Blue Devils to cover the 4 points. I'd almost even with Riley Leonard being out, I think their defense is going to be the star of the show here. And I'll hold off on calling them my dog of the week, but if I had to lean one way, I'll say Duke +4. Might be a little bit crazy there, but that's where my gut's telling me to go.
Yeah, I would take the points. If I would actually take Duke to win this game outright if Riley Leonard goes in, but yeah, I'll stay away. What's next for this week?
4. What else do we got? Do you want to touch on Florida State, Wake Forest, early matchup?
Well, you already know who I got. Give me Florida State money line. The reasoning explains itself. I think Florida State, unless they go in there and sleepwalk, they're coming out with a victory.
Yeah, Florida State. They're traveling to Winston-Salem to take on Wake Forest, 4-3. Florida State still undefeated. I think moneyline is a very safe position to add to the parlay. I'm a little wary on Florida State covering a 20.5 point spread. So I'll stay away from that, and I'll just call an over 51.
Okay,
Wake Forest
nice.
beat Pitt last week. But then a couple bad losses to Virginia Tech, Clemson, and Georgia Tech. Still put up 13, 12, and 16 respectively in those games. Put up 21 against Pitt. I think Florida State could get very close to the point total themselves. Just depends on how their defense performs against Wake, how much they give up. I think the over 51 is a safer position to take than Florida State covering the 20.5. If I had to lean one way, Wake Forest at home, big game for them. I could see them keeping this one close throughout. If I had to lean one way on the spread, I'd actually take the Demon Deacons plus 20.5. But my official call for this one would be the over 51.
Yeah, I might have to take this over.
Yeah, don't mean to knock on your the winner pick for the whole season there, but just got to call like I see it, 20.5, just a little bit too much points there.
Yeah, give me Florida State to win, but I don't think they'll cover either, but I think they'll do enough to take it. Yeah, I don't think they'll be as hype to go out there and play this Wake Forest team. I think they might be looking past it already.
Yeah, it's a noon kickoff. They might be a little shaky to start, especially after last week's near scare against Duke. But I think they'll definitely come away with the win.
Yeah, and it looks like we have. So this is one of the more interesting games of the week for me. Kentucky versus Tennessee. They're going to play at Kentucky. Tennessee is a 3.5 point favorite. I don't know. This game is tough for me. I can see it going either way. And I like Tennessee, but Kentucky's coming off 2 straight losses back to back. They're on a bye week. You kind of put them into a corner where this is a must-win game for them, and they're playing at home. So their quarterback hasn't looked good at all, but their rushing game is really good, and we saw Florida be able to run the ball on Tennessee when Florida played at home, and here you have Kentucky at home too, and they can run the ball. So definitely an interesting matchup. I can see it going either way, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky can at least cover the spread. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm right there with you, Alex. I think Kentucky plus 3.5 at home, coming off of last week, a tough one against Mizzou at home, and then it's hard when you're playing Georgia. But I think they get a win this week. Even safer to call plus the points. Tennessee blew it last week against Bama. They didn't put up anything in the second half. And now they got to go on the road again. And I just lean towards Kentucky on the spread. I could see it going either way, though, so I'll probably stay away from calling this one, or putting it into my parlay, rather. The line of 51.5 is a tad interesting, because some weeks Kentucky's not putting up much, and then other weeks they get right about 2 there. They put up 33 against Florida 3 weeks ago, 45 against Vanderbilt, 35 against Akron. And Tennessee, if they can have a similar first half that they did against Bama, then that over's probably a lock. But I just don't trust the Volunteers right now. I think I'm just going to stay away from this one entirely on the parlay, but I do like Kentucky plus the points.
Yeah, at first I was thinking about adding this one to my parlay, but then I was like, you know what? I've lost the last two parlays by one leg. I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of those games that's going to make you regret putting it on your parlay either way because, you know, I can honestly see both of these teams winning. Tennessee's defense is good enough that they can stop the run, but they're playing at Kentucky. So I'll stay away from this game as well.
Yeah, I think Ray Davis is going to be due for a big game. 781 yards on the season, 8 touchdowns. I like him to control the pace for Kentucky. Like you said, I could see this going either way. That's why I will probably stay away from it. But I do like Kentucky's chances here at home. I think the next big one I want to cover is Notre Dame and Pitt.
I like
My
this
own
game
opinion.
for Notre Dame.
Spread's at 20.5.
Over unders at 45.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
You're
don't
just
know if
thinking
they'll be
Notre
able
Dame
to.
money line?
Yeah, I'm thinking money line. So we saw
Okay.
Pittsburgh beat Louisville. Well, I think Louisville beat Notre Dame, but football math
Right.
doesn't work like that. I think Notre Dame can win this one pretty easy. I don't know if they'll cover, but I like Notre Dame money line as a pretty safe bet.
Alex, I might have to fight back on you for this one. This might be one to keep out of the parlay, but don't let me dissuade you or persuade you one way or another. Here's my own personal take. I think Pitt plus 20.5 is very safe. From my personal experience, Notre Dame's the type of team to either play up or play down to their competition. They lost against Louisville. Pitt did beat Louisville, and I know you said football math doesn't work like that, but there's got to be something to take away from that. And if you're looking at the recent matchups where Pitt is traveling to South Bend, this definitely isn't one of the more known rivals, but this is a long-standing rivalry between Notre Dame and Pitt. Last time Pitt came into South Bend was 2018. Was in attendance for that one. I was nervous that entire game. We only won by 5, 19-14, but Pitt kept it close. 2012, triple overtime. Pitt lost, but 29-26. 2010, lost by only 6. 2008, they won in quadruple overtime. So just, the past 4 or 5 matchups, Pitt's easily covering that spread. And I know Notre Dame has looked better the past couple of weeks. Or last week, winning against USC. But this is a team that still makes me nervous week in and week out whenever they're playing anybody because I feel like they have imposter syndrome from week to week. They look good and then they look bad, or they play down to an unranked opponent and then they play Ohio State very close. I think you got to lock in Pitt plus 20.5, and I'd be very happy to be proven wrong by the Irish. But I think that's just way too many points. I think this one's going to be a low-scoring game. Give me Pitt plus 20.5 and give me the under of 44.5.
Yeah, you know what? I just took Notre Dame off my parlay. the risk isn't worth the extra like $200 on a parlay. They're minus 1,000 or minus 1,100 favorite. So yeah, that one's coming off after hearing that.
I don't love
a
the
solid
value
take.
you're getting. Yeah, but I do think they win, but I just don't love the value there. And on the off chance that Pitt has another upset or keeps it close, it's just not worth the stress for me personally, at least. And Alex, I think that might be the one that could upset your parlay again. So
yeah, that could have been that last leg again that makes me not win the parlay.
Yeah. Let's go
Looks
through
like we
another
have
couple games pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, which one did you want to go through?
So Penn State hosting Indiana at home. The line is, I believe, minus 32, 31.5. Indiana's not good at all. I like Penn State to cover this one. They'll win big. They'll bounce back. Um, they'll bounce back against IU after losing a tough one to Ohio State. Give me Penn State minus 32.
Yeah, I like Penn State here to cover as well. I think they're going to come out with some revenge. Mm, Drew Aller could have a good day, and yeah, I'm confident in their defense to get enough points to cover that spread. Looks like we have Ohio State at Wisconsin too. Um, I like Ohio State here, but they just won a big game against Penn State, so you could see them potentially have a slow start. That could complicate things. I wouldn't be so surprised if Wisconsin's able to hang in there, at least cover the spread.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Wisconsin, a nice comeback win last week on the road, fighting against Illinois, and they showed some grit down the stretch. And here's my take for Ohio State, coming off of a big game. I think they'll probably get out to a decent lead, either by one score or two, but I think they'll go into sort of a turtle mode and just try to hold that line throughout the rest of the second half. I can see Wisconsin easily covering the 14.5 points at home. I've been wrong on Ohio State the past 2 weeks with the spreads, but I'm going to go 3 times in a row. Give me Wisconsin plus 14.5. I think they'll keep it closer than that. And Ohio State's just going to mostly look to get the W rather than run up the score. Also, I just can't trust Kyle McCord that much. Yeah, I think they keep it close.
Yeah, and we also have North Carolina versus Georgia Tech. So North Carolina lost last week to Virginia, a very bad Virginia team.
Terrible.
That was actually pretty shocking to me. But I think they'll bounce back here in a close one, but I think they do just enough to take it. I'll take North Carolina money line.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me to give a call on. North Carolina looked horrible last week. That's a game they should never lose. At the same time, I can't really give much credit to Georgia Tech, aside from the fact that they'll be at home. And UNC looked terrible last week. Maybe a tad bit overrated on the season. Still at number 17. I think they probably should be a little bit lower than that. This is going to be a make it or break it game for the Tar Heels. I think they have no shot at the college football playoff now, but they could secure a nice bowl game if they run the table. Georgia Tech losing badly to Boston College last week. That's my big qualm with them. I almost want to stay away from this game. If I had to lean one way or the other, I'd say give Georgia Tech the 11.5 points. But more than that, I think we'll go over 63.5. That'll be my call for this one. Drake May is gonna want to get some stats up there, have a good showing for him personally. So my position will be 63.5 over for that one.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. We have a couple tricky games right here. We have Washington State against Arizona State. Washington State's favored by 6. We saw them have a pretty good game on offense against Oregon, but they lost. We saw them get completely destroyed by Arizona. I don't know. What do you think about this game? It's a little sneaky, isn't it?
I kind of want to just stay away from it overall. Arizona State's 1-6, but only given +6. So maybe Vegas knows something that we don't. I would want to say Washington State could cover that. They're coming off of 3 straight losses, though, albeit against some pretty good teams, but losing really badly against Arizona 2 weeks ago. I would say Washington State -6 if I had to give a call. Arizona, 5 straight losses, maybe 6. They've lost their last 5. They even lost to Colorado. So, yeah, give me Washington. Washington State -6.
Yeah, I'll stay away from this one. I think Vegas knows something, and Arizona's been pretty close to. I mean, they almost beat Washington last week.
Mm-hmm.
They were close to beating California, lost to Oregon, put up 28 on USC, which is no surprise with that terrible USC defense. But yeah, I'll stay away from this one. I think Vegas knows something. And last time we saw this, UCLA was favored to beat Washington State when Washington State was undefeated. So I'm getting similar vibes here. I think this is going to be a little sneaky. Vegas is up to something, so I'll stay away from this game completely.
Do you have any calls on the over/under 51? Any way you lean?
I like the over here.
Yeah. I was kind of leaning under for a second, just because of only putting up 7 last week, and then they put up 28 against USC and 24 against Colorado, but those defenses are pretty bad. I think Washington State hold them to less than that. I'd actually lean under just to oppose you, but stay away from making a call on that or a bet on that position.
Yeah, and we have Oregon State versus Arizona as well. Another tricky game. Oregon State's only favored by 3.5. You know, we saw Arizona give USC, Washington really close games. So I'll stay away from the money line, but I really like the over in this game. It's set at 56.5. But both teams score lots of points. I think they'll be able to cover that pretty easily.
Yeah, 56.5 is the line there, right? I think that's an easy call for the over. Late night matchup on ESPN. I think you're going to see a shootout.
Yeah, and then for the big game, I have Oregon versus Utah. The Ducks are traveling to Utah. 6.5. Oregon's favored by 6.5. Over under is at 49. I like the Ducks here. I think Utah has a good defense. They were able to score some points against USC, but the Oregon defense is a lot better. I mean, USC's defense is terrible. I've said it multiple times. I don't think Utah's going to be able to get the job done. I like Oregon money line, and I'm leaning towards Oregon to cover the spread, but it is at Utah, so I'll put Oregon on the money line.
Yeah, this is a tricky over/under 47.5. I'd want to lean to the over just because I think Oregon's offense will outmatch the Utah defense. But I'll stay away from the over/under on this one. I'll stick with Oregon covering the -6.5. I think that's very doable for them, despite being on the road. Utah beating USC last week, but not enough for me to back them with the points. 3 weeks ago, a bad loss against Oregon State, and I think Oregon will have a very similar fate in this one. I see them winning by more than a touchdown, so give me Oregon -6.5.
Yeah, I like that. I like that call right there. So I think we can get in here to build our parlays. So for me, I'm going to go Oklahoma over Kansas on a money line, Florida State money line, Clemson money line, Miami over Virginia money line, Oregon over Utah money line, Ohio State versus Wisconsin money line, and North Carolina over Georgia Tech on the money line. I'm going to put, let's see, $20 to win 48. And yeah, that's going to be my place for this week.
All right, I hope you all heard that pretty clearly. I know I kind of missed a couple of those as Alex was going through it, but Alex, I hope you can get all of them this time. I hope nothing eludes you like one leg has the past 2 weeks. I think very, very safe and smart calls on those money lines. As for me, I'm going to keep it consistent. I'm going to give another slate of 4. spreads or over-unders. I'm going to start with the Florida State Wake Forest over 51. Then we're going to shift over to Penn State covering minus 31.5 against Indiana. Then we're going to go to the game we just talked about, Oregon and Utah. Give me Oregon minus 6.5. And here's the thing. I'm very confident on Pitt plus the points, but I just can't put that in the parlay personally on the off chance Notre Dame proves that they don't play down to their competition. Maybe Sam Hartman really is that guy. I'm going to stay away from that one on the parlay. But give me oh boy. Give me the Wisconsin Ohio State under 44. I don't want to put my eggs in the Wisconsin basket of covering the 14.5. I'm more confident in Ohio State's defense and Wisconsin's defense as well. Fade Kyle McCord. I don't think Brian Day is utilizing the running backs to their fullest potential. Maybe Cade Stover has a couple of nicks and bruises from last week's matchup. He did return to that game, but I'll finish it out with the Ohio State Wisconsin under for another 4-leg parlay. Be about like 10 to 1, 11 to 1. 11 to 1. 4-leg spreads and over-unders. Wake Forest, Florida State over, Penn State minus 31.5, Oregon minus 6.5 against Utah, and Ohio State, Wisconsin under. That's my play.
Yeah, that's a good play. You had me so convinced that Pitt could cover against Notre Dame. I even took them out my parlay.
So the thing for me is the personal connection where if Notre Dame does end up doing that, I'm going to feel so much worse than being wrong on like a game like Ohio State, Wisconsin. But from all my knowledge on seeing Notre Dame on TV and in person the past couple of years, I'm still very confident in Pitt covering that spread. Past historical matchups on the road for Pitt have proven that they could keep it close. So I still like the play for you, Alex. Just for me personally, something is telling me to not jinx it. So I'll stay away, and hopefully that is better luck for you.
Yeah.
So
I like those plays.
I'm placing a smaller keeping consistent $5 wager to return 58.39.
Nice.
Yeah, that's. Let's see if we can, or for me personally, see if I can make it to 11-1 with another parlay win. 3-1 first week, 4-0 last week. Let's see what these slate of 4 gives me.
Yeah, I'm excited Alex, for these games.
I'm having my fingers crossed, both hands. I think you got a good one this weekend. I think this is the week you make it back.
Yeah, we're gonna make it back with interest. So on my personal parlay, I'm gonna go a little bit bigger than the 20. So we'll see how it turns out. Yeah, I'm excited for this week. I'm excited for the week after that. Probably gonna go to the drive down to Tuscaloosa for that LSU Alabama. Gonna do some tailgating at the stadium. So definitely excited for that one.
Yeah, I will say we probably have a lot more interesting matchups next weekend, but nonetheless, a lot of good football coming up for us. It's going to really dictate how the storylines for the end of the season go. And as always, got to take these positions and see how they shake out. make it a little bit more interesting when you're on your couch or out at a bar with some friends watching these games. It's gonna be another good weekend of college football, Alex. And to anyone
and for
listening,
everybody listening,
on the same wavelength here, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, for anyone listening, if you have any locks, just drop them down in the comments. We might add them to our parlay. Tell us who you think is going to win. Maybe throw in there some spreads, some over-unders. Just let us know which game you're most excited to see. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.
So thanks to our two hosts, just a quick reminder that none of this was financial advice or sports advice. The choice is yours. Place your position on overtime markets.xyz. See you next week.